So I'm going to kick off by just asking you to introduce yourselves and explaining a little bit about what you're doing. Rahul, let's start with you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rahul. I work with Scibids in Singapore. I look after the APAC region. And my previous companies were Media Math, MediaCom, and Media Turf. So, I've spent some time in media.
Nice to mix it up a bit without a company without an M at the start of
I had
it.
to change the pattern.
Yeah, nice. Ren.
Hi everyone, I'm Ren from APB Heineken, looking after digital acceleration and media.
And Remy.
Yeah, hi everyone. Remy Loyer, I'm a co-founder and president of Scibids. We're an AI firm specialized in digital marketing. And I'm kind of a nerd really. So I have a PhD in computer science. I like math and chess, all this bizarre stuff. And I oversee research and development for Scibids.
We love nerds, so welcome.
Thank you.
This is ad tech after all, right? Great. Okay, so thanks very much for joining me on stage here today. We wanted to have a chat about obviously what Scibids are doing in the industry, specifically diving into the value of AI for brands and marketers. Now, I'm going to kick off on my first question, throwing it open straight over to you, Ren, to talk a little bit about the work that you've done at Heineken using Scibids solutions and what type of value that's brought to you. So I particularly want to understand, if I'm a brand or a marketer, why might I be using AI to power my campaigns? And one of the things that came up quite a lot in conversations yesterday is that obviously at the moment in the advertising and marketing industry, our wider sort of context is that there are many markets that are potentially falling into recession. Certainly, we're definitely facing tough financial headwinds. So if I'm a marketer and I'm thinking about the best way to invest my money and where I can be saving money most, might I be looking to AI as one of those tools? Tell me a bit about your experience.
All right, so many questions. I'm going to break it down
sorry.
a little bit.
Classic Rachel Smith, 7 questions in one. I do apologise.
No. So I'll focus on the first thing first, which is really around marketing goals. I think regardless of recession, when we're looking at that, essentially, no matter what they are, if we're trying to get there, what we're playing with is efficiency and effectiveness levers. And within this space, if I were to look at it from a consumer journey standpoint, from the exposure to consumer action, I want to mitigate as many inefficiencies as possible. And with that, really optimizing multiple KPIs across different data sources. And now as I say this, I can hear the groan in agencies and partners, right? The client wants everything. Why can't you just pick one KPI? So I absolutely empathize with that. I come from agency as well. But what I'm trying to say is there is a lot of work to be done and a lot of decisions to be made. And I think if I look at the humans that are working on the business, what I would want us to do is really focus on thinking and planning a consumer-first strategic approach rather than the execution elements. So here I think it's where AI can play and it can influence at scale and frequency. So that's on the goals part. Now looking at the broader picture, I would say that for a long time now I've been facing a talent and time crunch, and that's going to intensify with recession, with the Great Resignation. So I guess with that, where AI can really play, especially within the APAC region, where all the markets are so different, right? In terms of culture, talent, maturity. I was speaking with a colleague from Cambodia yesterday, even the choice of partners are different. So I think in this space where AI can really benefit all of us is to really level the playing field with some added intelligence and essentially bring more for each marketing dollar.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point about how this might differ, kind of from market to market within APAC. Is that, from your experience working at a brand like Asia Pacific Breweries, is that something that has been sort of a golden thread throughout your marketing campaigns? Are you actually executing completely differently in one APAC region to another? Do you feel as though AI is a tool that can specifically help you navigate your way through that sort of cultural complexity?
Yeah, I think for sure the key big players, so when you look at Meta, Google, they are more or less across the markets, or even Adobe. But there are some differences in what we can work with within each market. So as much as possible, we'll try to bring in partners who are able to integrate or has presence across the different markets where we can try to scale learnings at least, rather than each market trying to manage an individual vendor on their own.
And I guess that's when it becomes really interesting to think about what partners you're working with within market, and also to think about what support you're getting from your agency or agency colleagues as well. You know, one of the other things we talked a bit about yesterday was how more than ever, the service layer within the industry, everybody that's supporting brands and marketers to achieve their goals, are more important now because of the increased complexity. So, you know, is that another key factor for you too? How you choose your agency partners across the region? Obviously, how you work together with your technology partners?
Yeah, so definitely it's going to be a very complex space. So when I was thinking about when I just started out in the industry, I was shown this display ecosystem from marketers to publishers, and there were so many logos in there. I was like thinking to myself, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
So looking at complexity right now, I think kind of human nature, right? When you look at something that's relatively new and foreign, especially in the space that we are in today, we're looking at first-party data, we're looking at AI, contextual targeting, again, definitely people will feel a little bit of fear and inertia. So I think it's really important that we are working with the brilliant minds that we see in this room, as well as beyond, in picking our partners to really rely on them to help us navigate this space, simplify it, and basically make it easier for us to work with them.
Yeah, and okay, I'm also just going to throw over to you for a second as well, Raoul, being quite experienced in the region. You know, you mentioned already, Ren, efficiency and, you know, just driving cost effectiveness as being some of the main reasons you might adopt AI tools. Is there anything else from your point of view, Raoul, you can think that is maybe region specific? I'm just thinking it's a mobile heavy region. Is there anything that you can think that connects the two?
I think we definitely see a wide variety of reasons why people might be adopting different technology. AI in particular, I can speak to, and we see it very, very different from different parts of the region. In a market like Japan, it's about automation. It's about being able to give people the chance to go home at 9 p.m. rather than working till 2 a.m. In a market of Australia, it's a bit of balance between saving cost and saving time. So we want to do a bit of both. So very, very different scale of reasons. We actually did a survey with, sorry, I'm skipping through a lot of the stuff. We actually did a survey along with your team in the UK to ask agencies and brands what might be the reasons to adopt AI. And as you can see, there's a very wide range of reasons for people. That changes. Most markets in APAC fall somewhere in that spectrum. And largely, we can see that it is automation. I want to be able to save cost, do more for less.
Yeah. That brings me on to another slide, if you could go backwards a little bit, Raoul. Referencing the survey that we did with you guys in the UK, where we were asking marketers what would be a barrier to adoption for AI tools, and complexity is the thing that came out the highest, right? So 60% of marketers saying that they're interested in using AI tools, but they feel like it's far too complex, and that's what's putting them off. So, question for both of you, but I'm going to start with you, Ren. Did you face that when you were trying to execute your marketing campaigns this way at Heineken? And, what would you say to brands and marketers that feel sort of reluctant due to that ever-growing complexity?
So honestly, if I were to look at Scibids, for example, when I brought it in the plan, it was really quite easy. There wasn't much resistance at all. And when I was sharing it with colleagues locally, regionally, globally, all of them were really interested to understand how it works and really what it's going to bring to the table. So with the pilot results so far, thankfully, the results have been great. So the next step is really kind of bringing that learning into the organization again to make sure that we're able to scale it across the brands while maintaining the performance that we've seen so far. And why I say that it was relatively easy to sell in new solutions within the organization, I think it's important that as leaders and companies, we need to set the right stage. So if I look at the culture internally, for example, one of the key behaviors that we have is making courageous moves. So I think something like that gives people that opportunity and willingness to try something new, of course, with aligned objectives in mind. I think that's one part. And the second one is really just about empowerment and collaboration. So I'm sure within the organization, there will be a team of people, or you could put together a cross-functional task force to really kind of navigate this space, to really explain it.
That's a really interesting summary of some of the things that are required within an organisation to get the kind of buy-in to try to reduce that feeling of how do I get around complexity. So maybe, you know, and Remy, I'm going to come to you in a minute to talk in a bit more detail about the specifics behind your AI tools. But Remy, Raoul, there's too many R's on this panel. I'm an R as well. It's like we're a boy band. But Raoul, I want to come back to you just to ask what, you know, for those, so do you think that maybe this 60% that are talking about complexity feeling like an overwhelming barrier, is that maybe just a perception? Perhaps they're, so two things. Is it a perception? Is it perhaps that they feel a bit bamboozled by the notion of using and applying an AI tool? Or is it cultural, you know, structures within organisations that are creating that barrier? As Ren's mentioned, there's a lot of support within her organisation and a real sense of leadership around being brave and collaborating. What do you reckon?
I think there are some companies and some brands where people are empowered, Ren is a great example, are empowered to cut through the complexity and make good stuff happen because we know our future depends on it. And there are some companies where it is slightly more complex. I've got a range of agencies. I've got my digital agency. I've got my creative agency. I've got 3 DSPs. I've got, you know, 2 measurement partners. They just, you know, there's a lot of complexity in there. And using the main KPI, the main thing that the brand is built for, is usually the best way to cut through a lot of that. And Heineken did that. I mean, we didn't see it over here. Something at the bottom over here, something called HCPM. Heineken has created a metric through which to evaluate the effectiveness of their media. And that sort of makes everybody focus on the one thing that we need to deliver and makes it easier.
And somewhat simplifies it, right? You know, we've also talked about the fact that, you know, use and application of technology should become simpler over time, not more complex. So that leads me into, there's still loads of other things I want to dive into, but that leads me into a question I want to pose to you, Remy, which is basically, how did you build and construct this tool? What's behind, you know, what's the magic behind the AI approach that you've adopted at Scibids?
Yeah, so that's a very short time to answer the question, but I'm going to give you a few pointers. So at Scibids, we build AI as a service. This means that we basically help media buyers get the best performance possible from their campaigns by taking in charge the bidding of the campaign, so the AI taking in charge of the bidding. We do that by leveraging one of the most advanced features of the demand-side platforms, which is our Bring Your Own Algorithm API. And basically, this means that the AI is able to push, you know, for every campaign, several times a day, a very big model like this one. So the AI will push thousands of these models for a campaign, like the one we did for Guinness, for instance. And you know, this is really what's needed to get the best performance possible for a given campaign. So real sophistication. This does not mean that the usage cannot be simple, but behind that there is some sort of complexity, of course. The AI also will take charge of things like budget allocation or frequency management. And I think on the budget allocation front, something I find always a bit fascinating is to see how the AI will select, you know, the line items to spend the budget every hour of every day. And as you see, I mean, that's not something a human would do. The quality of impression inside the line item, inside the strategy varies throughout the day, throughout the day of the weeks. And the AI, without any human, a priori, without any human bias, will always find the best repartition day after day. So that's always kind of interesting to see. But I would say what I'm the most excited about is that when we work with a mature advertiser like APB, and when actually the AI is not just used to improve a media KPI, but really to help an advertiser generate outcomes that are really uniquely fitted to their needs. And when you have an advertiser that does the hard work of defining very precisely what its outcome is, so for instance, like this HCPM that we saw, then actually the AI can be used not to improve vanity metrics, but really to help an advertiser generate the outcomes that are correlated to the revenue. And I think that's what advertising should look like.
And rowing back a bit, when you first started Scibids, like five or 6 years ago, was it? You know, you built it around, or you built it with a bit of a firm focus on contextual signals. What sort of made you do that? Because now we're in a world where that looks like the best move ever. You know, the world is very privacy first focused. You know, we're moving completely away from using third party cookies and third party tracking mechanisms. So what made you focus on that sort of 5, 6 years ago?
Well, I would like to say that I predicted everything, but that wouldn't be honest. The truth is, actually, it wasn't. It was hardly a choice at all. So audience is but one dimension among the 50 that are available in a bid request. And actually, I realized that firsthand because I did my PhD in audience scoring. So I established very nice methods to score audiences that were performing quite well. But at the end of the day, traders would come to me and say, okay, well, what's the fixed bid I should put on this line item? Is that 50 cents? Is that $1? So of course I would fake a very deep thought and say, well, 1.27, obviously. But there's a clue. I mean, the thing is I didn't have a clue. And so when we started Scibids, the agenda was clearly to really use all the data available to get, just to train the AI in the best way possible. And turns out, most signals are contextual, and audience is only there for a small fraction of bid requests anyway. So I mean, that might be a controversial statement here, but I think the fact that third-party audiences are going away is not a very big deal for campaign performance if you use the right tools.
And, we had quite a lengthy conversation. Yes, I mean, it came up in a few panel discussions, but we had a lengthy conversation about the value of contextual advertising to brands and marketers in a general capacity. And I think that, the conclusion was contextual advertising has always been hugely valuable. It should never, it should never have been usurped by anything else. It should always be used, and can be used potentially in conjunction with some other tools. What's your perspective on contextual advertising and the value of it in a general sense? So 5, 6 years ago, were you finding it really easy to explain to your customers the value of this tool?
Yeah, I think contextual advertising maybe has been mistaken over the years for things like keyword contextual targeting or this kind of thing. I think really context is the very core of the data we have. When anyone is trying to get the best performance possible out of a campaign. I also think that the difference between audience and context is somewhat a bit artificial. So if you're saying that iPhones are performing better, is that because your ad is just showing very well on iPhone, or is that because iPhone is a proxy for the audience you are searching to target? And actually, does it matter? Because maybe what matters is just that advertising on iPhone is getting you good results. So maybe this whole question about contextual versus audiences is that maybe as someone said yesterday, it's a continuum. Audience, contextual, they are all merged somehow. What's important is that what's going to remain is the fact that advertisers are going to know very precisely what are the good diffusion contexts, and they are going to be able to push more budget toward it and get better performances. And I think that's all they need.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. Raul.
Maybe I'll just add on. The best part is that all this data always existed, continues to exist. It's available to us in the platforms that we're using today. It's just not usable by a human being sitting at a screen looking at a UI. It's not usable. You put a machine behind it, it can now make sense of the data to actually make it usable for your brand.
And I suppose just one final question on this to you, Ren, which is, you already mentioned that the things that were driving you to Scibids were, the promise of efficiency and, effectiveness. But was the sort of privacy compliance element a big thing for you too? Were you actively looking for ways to move away from other forms of advertising and go to something that you knew was going to be very privacy first?
Yeah, definitely. I think privacy, while relaxed in our region, ultimately for us within the organization, because of global compliance, we are definitely still looking for privacy compliance. And I think more so than that, for alcohol advertisers like us, there's actually a lot of limitations when it comes to first-party data. So solutions like this, there's a little bit that still gives us reach, which is fundamental to penetration marketing for us, would be very helpful throughout the journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I like to hear you say that because we sort of had, conversations about how important privacy is. And then we get people sort of saying, no, not in Asia. I mean, yes, okay, from a legislative point of view, perhaps it's not necessarily an immediate priority, but it's good to hear that it is sort of the fundamental and basis, what's behind a lot of brands and marketers' thoughts when they're wanting to execute marketing campaigns. Raul, let's go a bit to what the adoption of AI looks like across the APAC region. What are you seeing?
Actually, I mean, AI, as we know, is transforming so many industries, whether it is Alexa or DeepMind, whatever, it's in there everywhere. In marketing, as far as, an AI completely building your creative from scratch might be a little far away. In the media space, actually, we are seeing very good adoption. I'll just share a story from the US. Actually, one of the largest global beverage brands just did an RFP for AI. We're just coming out of that RFP process, and so it's now becoming a thing. People want to get in there and explore what it can do for them. From an APAC perspective, I can share a little bit of the adoption numbers over here, and we're actually seeing very good adoption from brands and agencies. Bearing in mind, we just started in 2019, the number of, this represents DSP seats that actually are deploying AI. And, it's steady up and to the right, and there's a requirement, brands and agencies realize it, and they are willing to, put their money where their mouth is and try it out.
And we talked a little bit yesterday about the concept of technology enabling humans, moving to humans enabling technology, the idea being that it just becomes fully integrated with your life. It's so much part of the way that you're navigating your way around using technology tools and solutions that you almost don't notice it. Do you think that sort of more adoption of AI tools and techniques in the advertising process is going to help that?
I think absolutely. All the people in this room, I think, acknowledge that one of the biggest problems that we have is a scarcity of talent. So whether you're an agency, you're a brand, you're a tech vendor, you don't have talent available to be able to come in. When an entire industry complains of that, it is important for the manager, it's the responsibility of the leaders to equip their people with the tools to make them productive, to get quality of work and quality of life. Otherwise, this industry folds.
100%. Any maybe final tips for people, particularly brands and marketers that might be in the audience that you'd be speaking to about adopting AI tools and solutions? Maybe they're feeling a little reluctant, a little underconvinced. What would you be saying to them?
I would say the number one thing, just focus on the core business that you are in, and use that as the guiding light, and use all the technology and tools around, including AI, to be able to help you get better at whatever that thing that you do is. And AI is there to help you. The main thing is you have a custom business. Your business is unique to you. The AI that we built essentially builds custom solutions for that specific purpose. So don't be scared, dive in.
Ren, a final word, do you think, in terms of advice for people that might be contemplating it?
I think, so earlier you talked about recession, right? So I think when we look at recession, ultimately, the high likelihood is all of us will land on cost-cutting and operational efficiency exercises. And that's even more so the case when we are looking at rising costs across logistics and raw materials. So I guess a different perspective to that is really to look at, as marketers, honestly, to really look at how can we better identify value and make smarter investments in both machine and human capital, so that we can really maximize the value of each and drive synergy. Because ultimately, just nice, there's this slide. It's really about revenue gains, right? So that you see here is that's really more beyond the efficiency that we're looking for.
It'd be nice to see how this might change over the coming year or so. Remy, any final words of encouragement that you would have if people are feeling reluctant about the world of AI in an advertising and marketing context?
Yeah, no, I think maybe similar to what Raoul said. I think what's really the most important is to focus on the KPI for the brand. And I think also something that was interesting yesterday as well is that a value is created the most at intersections between different technologies. And yeah, I would also, if I was an advertiser, I would also think of how can I use my optimization, my planning, and my measurement all in conjunction, just to give the best possible result. And today with standard tools. These things happen in silo. With AI, it's possible actually to have planning and measurement inform the decisioning at the very, very granular level of the bid, and that's really what, when value is created, for instance, when specific measurement KPI are used as objective of the optimization, or when first-party data assets are used also in the bidding to reach better performance. So that would be my advice.
Fantastic. We've run out of time, but thank you so much. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Remy. Thank you very much, Ren. Really enjoyed your insights. And a round of applause for my panelists.